Okay, so this is going to be the next video that I'm going to be recording on Hamlet. Now, this particular video is going to cover mainly Act 2. We went over Act 2 in class, in our virtual class last week, but that class did not convert the video, so I was unable to post it. So for those of you who were there, this might be somewhat repetitive, but I'm not going to go into it in as much detail. I want to try to highlight certain issues in Act 2 that are, I would argue, the most relevant in relation to what's going to be happening in the following acts. I want to, though, just remind us of where we're at, okay? To the central point and issue that really everything stems out of in this play is still back in Act 1. Now, we've discussed the scene when Hamlet, towards the end of Act 1, when Hamlet encounters the ghost of his father, right? And just to remind you, right? This is what I want to do is I'm not going to go over this scene again so much because we've done that in terms of reading it together. But what I want to do is show you a clip. All right, and I finally figured out how to do this on Zoom so that I can show a video and have the sound. I hope, fingers crossed. But I want you to see this because it really is central. It's what drives the entire action, pretty much, of the play. Is after this encounter that Hamlet has with the ghost of his father, it sets him on this path towards avenging his father's death. It's when his father, as a ghost, is going to reveal how he died and what the circumstances were, and that that Hamlet's uncle, Claudius, who's now king, actually murdered his father, who was king at the time. All right, so you can follow along, but I want us to watch this scene together. It's a fairly good chunk. It's about 4 or 5 minutes of this scene, but it gives you a sense of Hamlet's torment at the revelations that his father gives him. But it's also to remind you, and this again, you have to remember what we've been talking about in the play because we spent a lot of time on Act 1, that Hamlet is already quite fragile, all right, emotionally, mentally. We saw that in the scene with his mother, and he's not dealing with the situation well. In the situation being at what he knows at the time is that his father died, his uncle became king, and then his uncle married his mother shortly thereafter. And again, we've covered this. So we've talked about how one of the problems Hamlet has is he thinks everything through. He needs certainty in issues and in life in general, where certainty and absolutes are rare, if they exist at all. All right. So what I want to show you this is to give you a sense of the anguish that Hamlet is experiencing and experiences at this moment, and I think that'll play well in watching how he evolves after this. Remember, we talked about Hamlet's madness or feigned madness. Remember, the scene we're going to watch at the end of that, he meets up with Horatio and Marcellus and tells them that there'll be times when they see him acting as a madman, all right? He's telling them he's going to be doing this and that they're not to say anything and not reveal anything. But one of the questions that we're asking in this play is especially when we start watching Hamlet in the later acts is, is he just feigning madness, or has he lost his mind? All right, and it's a question that scholars have been investigating years and years and years. So let's look at this scene, and then we'll discuss it briefly, and then jump into Act 2. Where we're going to see now how Hamlet is proceeding from this moment. This is the moment that launches Hamlet towards all right, towards some kind of action. But again, the big issue with Hamlet is what is seemingly his inability to take action. Right? And remember, we're contrasting that with the other characters who are mirroring Hamlet, Fortinbras and Laertes, right? Who, when we see how they respond in terms of the action they take versus how Hamlet is struggling to take action in his response. So let me call this up. Oops, hold on. Bear with me. There we go. That should do it. And share. Up it goes. Okay, and just so you know, this is Act 1, Scene 5, right? We talked about that, and just to give you, this is right towards the end. If you want to follow along, sorry. Yeah, so this would be in our edition on page, starting on page 29, I believe. Okay. Page 28, I think there's, yeah, just the beginning. It should be right at the beginning of Scene 5, Act 1, Scene 5, page 28 of your book, okay? Okay, so that was not working. I'm going to try that again. Bear with me. Technology. All right, find it again. Okay, I'm going to try this again. I apologize, but I did have it working, and I think I just forgot to hit a certain button. So again, this is Act 1, Scene 5, and that's what I forgot to hit. There, this should do it. And let's try that again.
Let's follow! Where will that lead me? Speak! I'll go no further.
Mark me!
I will.
My hour is almost come, when unto sulphurous and tormenting flames must render up myself.
Alas, poor ghost.
Hear me not! But lend my serious hearing to what I shall unfold.
Speak. I am bound to hear.
So art thou to revenge when thou dost hear?
What?
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night, and for the day confined to fast in fires, till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burned and purged away. But that I am forbid to tell the secrets of my prison house. I could a tale unfold whose lightest word would harrow up thy soul, freeze thy young blood, make thy two eyes like stars start from their spheres. But this eternal blaze on must not be to ears of flesh and blood. List! List! Oh, list! If thou didst ever thy dear father love, oh God, revenge his foul and most unnatural murder.
Murder!
Murder! Most foul, as in the best it is. But this most foul, strange, and unnatural.
Haste me to know it, that I with wings as swift as meditation or the thoughts of love may sweep to my revenge.
I find thee apt. 'Tis given out that sleeping in my orchard, a serpent stung me. But know, thou noble youth, the serpent that did sting thy father's life now wears his crown.
Oh, my prophetic soul, my uncle.
Aye, that incestuous, that adulterate beast, with witchcraft of his wit, with traitorous gifts won to his shameful lust. The will of my most seeming virtuous queen. Oh, Hamlet, what a falling off was there from me, whose love was of that dignity that it went hand in hand even with the vow I made to her in marriage. And to decline upon a wretch whose natural gifts were poor to those of mine. But lust, though to a radiant angel linked, will sate itself in a celestial bed and prey on garbage. But soft. Methinks I scent the morning air. Brief let me be. Sleeping within my orchard, my custom always in the afternoon, upon my secure hour, thy uncle stole with juice of cursed Lebanon in a vial, and in the porches of mine ears did pour the leprous distilment, whose effect holds such an enmity with blood of man that, swift as quicksilver, it courses through the natural gates and alleys of the body, and with a sudden vigor doth posset and curd the thin and wholesome blood. So did it mine, and a most instant teta barked about, most lazar-like, with vile and loathsome crust, all my smooth body. Thus was I, sleeping by a brother's hand of life, of crown and queen at once dispatched. Oh, horrible! Most horrible!
Oh, God!
If thou hast nature in thee, bear it not! Let not the royal bed of Denmark be a couch for luxury and damned incest! But howsoever thou pursuest this act, taint not thy mind, nor let thy soul contrive against thy mother aught. Leave her to heaven, and to those thorns that in her bosom lodge, to prick and sting her. Fare thee well at once. The glowworm shows the matin to be near, and gins to pale his ineffectual fire. Adieu. Adieu, Hamlet. Remember me!
Okay. All right. So that gives you a little bit of, I don't know, feel, flavor of how this can be performed. You'll note that the actors playing the part are dressed in, well, a combination of modern and older clothing. This is very common in productions of Hamlet or any of Shakespeare's plays, to modernize it to some degree, but the essence is still there. And it does speak to this universal quality, to the issues that are being engaged in that, whether it was written 400 years ago or not, it still resonates today, because these are still the issues aspects of the human condition and human behavior that are timeless and universal. Okay. And those of you who are Star Trek fans, that was Patrick Stewart playing the ghost. Okay, so the reason I wanted to play that scene for you and just revisit that scene as well is to remind you of the importance of it. Okay, this is what is going to drive Hamlet's behavior and his quest, if you will, right? His father is saying, "You must avenge my death." And I want you to be thinking about that in terms of how Hamlet struggles to complete that, and also to be thinking about it in terms of what is actually involved in doing that. Right? There's suggestions in that speech. You know, why is Hamlet's father not in heaven? Why is he in this purgatorial state? And he mentions that he can't really talk about the foul deeds that he did in his life that he is now atoning for. And it's something to keep in mind because it will relate to what the father, this ghost of Hamlet's father, is telling Hamlet to do, is to avenge his death. And that what is suggested by that, in order to avenge the death, Hamlet is being asked to commit murder. Justifiable murder? Is there such a thing? Right? So it really questions the morality of taking the law into your own hands. And again, you want to see that in contrast to Fortinbras. Remember who Fortinbras is. He's the son of the king of Norway, who Hamlet's father killed, and Fortinbras has sworn revenge. And that's, you know, one of the things that is causing the disruption to the chaos in the state of Denmark. All right, so after that scene, he meets up with, as you remember, with Horatio and Marcellus, and has them swear that great swear that you will never talk about this, and they have to swear on the sword. I could show you that as well in this production. It's really done well, but we've covered that, and I don't want to spend too much time just looking at video clips. We want to get into the text itself and really get ourselves to Act 2. So again, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly and just try to highlight the most relevant. A lot is going on here. We've talked about this, and it's important to keep track of everything that's going on. What we have here, remember the subplot, we looked at this with Polonius and Ophelia and Laertes, right? And Polonius, as I mentioned, is an intriguing character, and he plays a pivotal role in this play. But it's also, he is the father of Laertes, and you'll see, because if you haven't read ahead, you won't know why Laertes is going to play such an important role, but that'll be revealed shortly. In this scene here, it's Polonius and Rinaldo. Again, we covered this in the class. This is Polonius asking Rinaldo to go follow Laertes, who's now, remember, gone back to France, and to keep an eye on him and test him. This is, again, it's an example of Polonius, as he did when he was giving his famous speech to Laertes, neither a borrower nor a lender be, and so on. Again, here, pontificating to a large degree, right? Explaining exactly to Rinaldo, this is how I want you to check up on my son. Bring him this money and these letters and so on. But now I want you to, check on his friends. Test him. Make sure he's behaving properly, right? Make sure he's behaving honorably. One of the things that we looked at, and just to remind you a bit, is here to give you an idea of Polonius, remember Polonius is a bit older, and he's so long-winded. He just talks and talks. And in this bit here, right, if you remember, he's going on, and get the sense that Reynaldo is probably like going, all right, let's go, I got it. But no, Polonius, we see that Gertrude as well they get impatient with Polonius because he just goes on and on. And here he's going on, and then he has this, and then, sir, does he this, he does, and he pauses here. What was I about to say? By the mass, I was about to say something. Where did I leave? So he even forgets himself because he's so long-winded, always with this advice, always with an attitude of that he knows more than everyone. He knows everything that's going on. And keep that in mind in terms of his relationship with the king, and that he is very close to the king. He's a close advisor to the king. All right. And this is, again, is setting up to keep an eye on Laertes. It alerts us as readers of the play that Laertes and Polonius are important here. All right, because this is here for a reason. It's one of the subplots that is essential in terms of the contrast with the main plot, and this is emphasized in how much time is spent on these characters. So he sends Reynaldo on his way to take care of Laertes, and then Ophelia, his daughter, comes in. And there's obviously some issues with Ophelia. Remember the scene with Ophelia. Both Laertes and Polonius have told Ophelia, because Hamlet seems to have designs on Ophelia. And both Laertes and Polonius told Ophelia, listen, don't pay attention to Hamlet. This can never work out. Okay, first of all, his station in life as being so close to the king and so on, and technically could have been king since it was his father who was the king before him. It's never going to work out. Don't trust him. He's just trying to woo you, and so on. And at the end of that scene, back in the first act, Polonius tells her, "You stay away from him. All right, Hamlet's no good for you. Keep your distance." And she agrees. She says, "I will obey." Now she comes in. There's something the matter, and Ophelia's saying she has been frightened, and she's been frightened by Hamlet. Remember now, we know that Hamlet has already suggested and indicated that he will be acting a bit bizarre, acting a bit crazy. And now we're getting related to us by Ophelia this kind of behavior, right? She says, my lord, as I was sewing in my closet, Lord Hamlet with his doublet all unbraced, no hat upon his head, his stockings fouled, he's disheveled, he's a mess, looking as if he had been loosed out of hell, to speak of horrors. All right. And something, again, anytime you're seeing these references to hell, heaven, any of the religious references, take note. There is a lot of issues pertaining to religion in this play. And when we see like loosed out of hell, I ask you to reflect on the ghost of his father. And that little bit there where he was saying, I am having to pay for all my foul deeds. I'm just incepting that into your heads now to keep it there as you see things unfold. And now here's Hamlet looking like he's been loosed out of hell. And Polonius says, "What, mad for your love?" And I don't know. But he really, really scared me. And Polonius, what exactly did he say? And then there's this, great description of this excessively dramatic behavior on the part of Hamlet as he is with Ophelia, that Ophelia is recounting now. He raised a sigh so piteous and profound as it did seem to shatter all his bulk and end his being. He seemed to find his way without his eyes. Remember, we covered this in class. He's walking away and he's looking back. It's just really dramatic, bizarre behavior towards Ophelia that has now really frightened Ophelia, and she's telling her father about it. And of course, her father immediately interprets it as being that, because people are talking, right? Since Hamlet has come back from seeing his father, and even before that, it's important to keep that in mind, because even before that, he was acting strange. Everyone was saying, "You're in mourning for too long. Come on, shed these dark clothes. It's time to, you know, to let go a little bit and stop this kind of behavior." Now, that's clearly the indication is that has come to an elevated level, and people are wondering why. What's happened to Hamlet that he can't? He's losing it. And Polonius says, "I will go seek the king." This is the very ecstasy of love. Polonius, in his know-it-all attitude, says, "Oh, well, now I understand why Hamlet is acting so crazy. It's because he is madly in love with my daughter Ophelia. And I must go tell the king, because the king and the queen are very concerned about why Hamlet is behaving in the way that he is." And he says, you know, "Have you given him any hard words?" And here we have Ophelia confirming, "No, my good lord, but as you did command, I did repel his fetters and denied his access to me." And now that even emphasizes for Polonius, oh, now you've rejected him, and now he's totally losing it. We must go and tell the king and the queen, which brings us to the next scene. Now, this is the longest scene in the play. And structurally, you could almost see it as 4 different scenes. So we're going to touch on all 4 as we go through this video. And we won't be able to get into too much depth because it would just take way too long. But the things I point out, when you reread it, be looking for these things, but also note how they all tie in to the different plot lines that are going on. What we have here is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, okay, and they're intriguing characters in the play. Okay, they're friends of Hamlet's, and they're meeting here with King Claudius, and the Queen Gertrude, Hamlet's mother. "Welcome, dear Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Moreover, that we much did long to see the need we have to use you did provoke our hasty sending." So openly admitting, we need you. We need you. We're going to use you. And something have you heard of Hamlet's transformation? The transformation being his bizarre behavior. What they're asking is, we want to know what is going on with Hamlet. What it should be more than his father's death that thus put him so much from the understanding of himself. All right, so they're calling in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to go hang out with Hamlet. You're friends of his. Get us information. It's basically spy on him. Spy on him so that we can learn more about why he is behaving this way. Which is it's a clear indication that Claudius, I mean, we can understand with Gertrude, this is Hamlet's her son. But with Claudius, especially now with what we know about him and how he became king and how he murdered his own brother, you know, he seems to be very almost obsessive about finding out what's going on with Hamlet. It might speak to his concern that maybe Hamlet is figuring things out. No absolute indication of that, but we see that this is fairly it's a big act to basically hire or use his friends to spy on him. Okay, draw him onto pleasures and to gather as much as from occasion you may glean. Get as much information about him we need to know. The mother Gertrude, 2 men there are not living, to whom he mourned hears. These are good friends. Again, I don't want to go too much into to them. There's a whole there's a lot of scholarship on Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and their role in this play, and it's really interesting stuff. But for our intents and purposes right now, just to understand that they are being used by the king and the queen to go spy on Hamlet. And we will both obey and here give up ourselves in the full bent to lay our service freely at your feet to be commanded. And the thing about Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is they're easily manipulated. We'll see this later on as well. So yeah, you want us to do this? Sure, whatever you want. Of course, he is the king. Makes sense, but they're not hesitating. They're not questioning this, even though there's something unsavory about going to spy on your friend. Thanks, Guildenstern and gentle. Great little line here. King Claudius goes, thanks, Rosencrantz and gentle Guildenstern, and the queen then repeats that, but inverses it. Now it's thanks, Guildenstern and gentle Rosencrantz, almost making Rosencrantz and Guildenstern seem interchangeable. And I beseech you instantly to visit my too much changed son. Okay, and that's again emphasizing that how much Hamlet has changed. They leave, and in comes Polonius. Now we know Polonius is on his way to talk about Ophelia, but before that, there's ambassadors from Norway. Now remember, in the previous scene with Claudius, he has sent ambassadors to Norway to see the king, right? Not Fortinbras. Fortinbras is not the king. His uncle is the king. Note the mirroring with the Hamlet situation. To find out what's going on with Fortinbras, because the rumors are that Fortinbras is coming to get his revenge and take back that land. These are the ambassadors. Now they've come back to report. They've gone to Norway. And now they're going to inform the king what has transpired from their visit. Okay. Now, but before they arrive, yes, Polonius comes in first and whets their appetite, as he used to have to do, that I have found the very cause of Hamlet's lunacy. Oh, speak of that do I long to hear, the king says. Give first admittance to the ambassadors. My news shall be the fruit to that great feast. In other words, oh, I know why Hamlet's behaving the way he is, by the way. And Claudius like, well, tell me. After you see the ambassadors, right? Take your time. Part of the reason there is, given Polonius's character, he knows that the ambassadors are waiting, and he wants to, really embellish his story about why Hamlet is Hamlet's lunacy. So let's take care of this business first, and then I'll have free reign, and I'll be the center of attention to tell you about Hamlet. So he leaves. He tells me, my dear Gertrude, he hath found the head and source of all your son's distemper. Oh, I doubt it is so. It is no other but the main, his father's death, and to our over hasty marriage. So Gertrude, right, is here expressing her belief that the reason that Hamlet is behaving like this is, right, the reason that Hamlet was behaving the way he was in the first act. Remember, his behavior is related to his father's death, and as she acknowledges herself, this overly hasty marriage, that they married too soon. And that was what was troubling Hamlet in the first, more than troubling, and it was explaining his bizarre behavior, because it was already bizarre back then. We looked at that last week. So it shows that she's, fairly in tune with her son. And she thinks that that's still the reason why even this uptick in his bizarre behavior is caused by these things. But the king is suspicious, and Polonius and others are suspicious. No, now it's really gone too far. There's something wrong here. And now Polonius, of course, thinks he knows why. Before Polonius can tell the king and the queen his theory, Voldemar comes in to explain what happened in Norway. I'll just review that with you carefully. He went and they talked with the king. The king checked up on his son, on his nephew Fortinbras, and found out that Fortinbras was indeed planning something, but he then, the king of Norway tells Fortinbras, no, you must never, right, make vow before his uncle never more to give the assay of arms against your majesty. He makes Fortinbras, the king of Norway, makes Fortinbras swear, right, that he will never take arms against against Denmark, against Claudius. Okay? Where on old Norway, that's the king of Norway, overcome with joy, gives him 3,000 crowns in annual fee. He's rewarding the king of Norway, rewards Fortinbras for agreeing not to go against Claudius. He gives him lots of money and a commission, and this is important, to employ those same soldiers that he was amassing to attack Denmark. He can keep those soldiers. He's going to get 3,000 crowns in annual fee. He can keep those soldiers and use those soldiers to attack Poland. And it's all down on paper, right? That it might please you to give him, and it's on paper, and in the agreement to the paper is this little thrown in at the end. Please sign this, Claudius, because this will also allow Fortinbras, with his troops going to attack Poland, but he needs to pass through Denmark to get to Poland. That it might please you to give quiet pass through your domains for this enterprise. Okay. Important point to keep in mind. Fortinbras was set on attacking Denmark. Denmark, King Claudius sends ambassadors, because he gets wind of it, he hears about it, to talk to the king. The king confronts, the king of Norway confronts Fortinbras of Norway, convinces Fortinbras to swear never to attack Denmark, rewards him for agreeing to that, and now sends Fortinbras to go and attack Poland, but he needs to take his troops through Denmark to get to Poland. Now, for anyone who's politically savvy, this would raise eyebrows. You're letting a foreign power, led by a person who has in the past and until very recently sworn to attack you and take back lands that he thinks is his. Now suddenly he's saying, no, don't worry, I won't, I swear I won't, but can I still bring all my troops through your domains? Okay. Claudius's reaction to that? Sure. Great. Absolutely, I'll sign it. Doesn't seem to recognize the implications and the potential danger. It also says something about old Norway here, right? That old Norway, the king of Norway, is he in on some scheme, right? And this is all lies and a means by which that Fortinbras would have easy access into Denmark. Or is it all legit? It's just in the political world, it would be quite suspect. Okay, Volkmar and Cornelius, the ambassadors who went to Norway, leave, and Polonius comes in to now, in his grandiose manner, reveal to the king and the queen why their son is behaving in the way he is. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole thing here. What's quite interesting is we know what he's going to say. He's going to say it's because he's in love with Ophelia, and Ophelia rejected him, and now he's losing it, all because of Ophelia. And I have evidence here. I have letters. What really lends itself to this scene, especially if you see it in performance, but again, our challenge is to see it when we read it, is how long-winded and pompous Polonius is. I will be brief. Okay, so he starts, I will be brief. Your noble son is mad. Mad call I it. For to define true madness, what is it but to be nothing else but mad? But let that go. So we already see he's hardly going to be brief. We know this from previous, but again, this is it's almost gibberish. It isn't, but it's, I will be brief. Your noble son is mad. Boom, that's brief. But he goes, I will be brief. Your noble son is mad. Mad call I it, for to define true madness, what is it but to be nothing else but mad? Okay. It's, I was going to show you a clip of him doing this because the actor does it in that, what I was showing you before. But again, we don't have time. I may show it later in another video. And of course, Gertrude is rolling her eyes. More matter with less art, she says. Basically, it's saying, get to the point. Don't be so wordy. Those of you who remember how I would tell you in your essays, don't be wordy. Don't include things that are unnecessary. Yes, Polonius would not do well if he wrote an essay for me in the way that he talks, because it's horribly wordy. He can't help himself, though. It's all part of his character. And there's some interesting and insightful things in there, but it is just on. And you'll see how Hamlet plays with this in a little while. And of course, with less art, meaning, less rambling and so on. Madame, I swear, I use no art at all. That he is mad, 'tis true, 'tis pity. And pity, 'tis true, a foolish figure. But farewell it, for I will use no art. Examples of how he just goes on and on. But what he brings up are these letters that Hamlet has written to Ophelia. Doubt thou the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love. Oh dear Ophelia, I am ill. Okay, so on and so forth. So it brings in this context by which Polonius is convinced this explains why Hamlet is behaving in the way that he behaves. So this goes on for a while. Everything goes on for a while when Polonius is speaking. They're wanting to have further evidence of this. King Claudius says, do you think 'tis this? And Gertrude is saying, it may be, very likely. And then Polonius, hath there been such a time, I'd fain know that I have positively said 'tis so, when it proved otherwise? He's saying, has there ever been a time when I've been wrong? Not that I know, Claudius says. Polonius goes on, pointing to his head and his shoulders, take this from this, if this be otherwise, if circumstances lead me, I will find where the truth is hid, though it were hid indeed within the center. Then Claudius asks, how can we be sure? How may we try it further? And Polonius says, sometimes he walks 4 hours together here in the lobby. Okay, so he comes up with a plan. When he's walking in the lobby, it's 4 hours, all right, and usually Hamlet, right, when he's walking, Polonius suggests, at such a time, I'll loose my daughter to him. I'll bring my daughter, I'll bring Ophelia. Be you and I, king, all right, be you and I behind an arras, drapes, then mark the encounter. If he love her not, and be not from his reason fallen thereon, let me be no assistant for the state, but keep a farm and caters. Let's spy on him. I'll bring my daughter, I'll bring Ophelia, when Hamlet's alone. We'll hide, and we'll watch what happens between the two of them. And Polonius says, and you'll see I'm right. And if I'm wrong, I'll leave you. I'll go out and live in the country. I'll no longer be an advisor, and so on. Then they see Hamlet, right? But look where sadly the poor wretch comes reading. Hamlet's in another part, like in another room. You have to see how this would be staged and so on. And Polonius says, away, I do beseech you both away. I'll board him presently. Let me go find some things out from him now. King, queen, you guys go with all your attendants. Let me probe Hamlet a little bit. And Polonius says, "Oh, give me leave. How does my good Lord Hamlet?" "Well, God of mercy." And Lord Polonius, again, because this is how we're going to find out at the beginning how Hamlet is behaving here. Remember, he is, we believe, feigning a level of madness. Polonius says, "Do you know me, my lord?" And Hamlet goes, "Excellent. Well, you are a fishmonger." "Not I, my lord." "Then I would you were so honest a man." Honest. This goes on. Hamlet is acting mad. Doesn't seem to recognize Polonius. He says, "You're a fishmonger." And Polonius is going, "No, of course not." Now, the question, of course, is Hamlet actually mad, or is he pretending to be mad? And if he's pretending to be mad, because this is the big question about that, why? These questions you want to be asking yourselves. One of the arguments against him being mad here is, and you can read through this yourself in greater detail, much of what Hamlet says that it seems to be nonsensical is actually quite revealing. And this comes back to, and I think we've had this discussion with Hamlet, that one of the stock characters is the fool, and often the fool who's meant to be foolish and that they're just to entertain in a court or something like that, often speaks great words of wisdom, which most people will miss because it's coming out of the mouth of the fool. But in fact, there's great meaning there. All right, we touched a little bit on that with Merchant of Venice. So this goes on. What I wanted to point out here, just see if I can find it. Yeah, so again, he talks about his madness. He talks in this bizarre way, but note Polonius's reactions. In asides, remember, I've always told you, be attentive to the asides. That means what he's saying, Hamlet can't hear. He's pulling aside. Though this be madness, yet there is method in it. And down here again, with an aside, how pregnant sometimes his replies are. Okay, so Polonius is like, wow, this is really nonsensical. He's really crazy. I'm going to probe him, see if it's because of my daughter. And what we get a sense of is that Hamlet is playing with Polonius. He knows Polonius is full of himself. He knows Polonius is long-winded and really goes on and on with words. So he's punning and playing those words very much against Polonius. And to Polonius's credit, he's picking up on it a bit, but he's not able to put it together. And then he decides, which reason insanity could not so prosperously be delivered of, I will leave him and suddenly contrive the means of meeting between him and my daughter. My honorable lord, I will most humbly take my leave of you. Okay, so basically he's seeing things here in Hamlet, but okay, we still have to go back to the plan. I gotta, bring Ophelia here, and the king and I will hide, and we'll see if it is directly related, because I can't make much out of what he's saying here. Fare you well, my lord. And then in comes Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Now again, this becomes a segue into the introduction of the players, the actors, right? Because Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are coming in to spy on Hamlet, as we learned earlier in this scene. Hamlet responds quite well to them because they are friends. I'd say exit Polonius, my honored lord, my most dear lord, and Hamlet said, my excellent good friends, how dost thou? Guildenstern, Rosencrantz, good lads, how do ye both? Now this, of course, has to be contrasted with the bizarre and seemingly nonsensical and mad behavior that he was exhibiting with Polonius. Now, when Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come here, he seems, at least initially, to be quite coherent. He recognizes them, and he seems genuinely pleased to see them. This goes on. They're reacquainting themselves. They're joking a bit with each other. What's the news? Hamlet asked. None, my lord, but that the world's grown honest. And then Hamlet's respond, then is doomsday near, but your news is not true. Let me question you more in particular. What have you, my good friends, deserved at the hands of fortune that she sends you to prison hither? Prison, my lord? Denmark's a prison. Why are you here? Right, and this is where Hamlet again starts drifting. Is this madness? Is he feigning it again? Is he just getting bizarre? Again, many ways to play the character of Hamlet on stage. If you watch productions, you'll see it's played in all these different ways. Denmark's a prison. Well, then the world is one, a goodly one in which there are many confines, wards, and dungeons. Denmark being one of the worst. We think not so, my lord. Right there again, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they're just like trying to please, and right now they're trying to get information. A little treacherous because Hamlet is their friend, as a reminder. Denmark being one of them, this prison. We think not so, my lord. And Hamlet, very well-known line. Why then 'tis none to you, for there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Okay. Very important line here. In order to determine whether something is good or bad, right? That's a judgment. That kind of judgment cannot be realized unless thought is put into it. This is Hamlet's position. If you are not putting thought into it, then you are not really determining whether it's good or it's bad. You are reacting. You are conditioned to believe something without thinking. Okay. For Hamlet, and this is again, we saw this earlier, Hamlet is all about thinking things through. And this is one of the problems Hamlet has, because the more you think about it, the more it's hard to determine any absolutes. Good and bad are absolutes. It's good, it's bad. Nothing makes anything good or bad except thinking. That makes it so. And therefore, it better be the right kind of thinking, the thinking of in depth. The problem is, the more you think, the further into those depths you descend. And that is one of Hamlet's big problems, is it prevents him from making decisions that lead to actions. Okay. He goes on here, but what make you at Elsinore to visit you, my lord? No other occasion. Again, why are you here? Hamlet's suspicious. Hamlet thinks a lot. He's going, well, okay, well, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern just show up at this time. What's going on here? Why are you guys here? To visit you, my lord. No other occasion. And this is like the second, third time they're saying this. Beggar that I am even poor in thanks, but I thank you. And sure, dear friends, my thanks are too dear a halfpenny. Were you not sent for? Is it your own inclining? Is it a free visitation? Come, deal justly with me. Come, nay, speak. All right, so he's confronting them. Now he's not saying not just saying what are you doing here? Were you not sent for? Were you not sent for? And speak plainly. Come on, guys. You're my friends. Come, deal justly with me. What should we say, my lord? Again, he shows you how wishy-washy to a large extent Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are. Why, anything but to the purpose. You were sent for, and there's a kind of confession in your looks, which your modesties have not craft enough to color. Okay, I know the good king and queen have sent for you. A couple of things here. So Hamlet's already figured it out. I know that the good king and queen have sent for you, and he probably knows why they sent for him. But it's also important here that your modesties have not craft enough to color. There's a kind of confession in your looks, right? They can't mask the way others are masking who they truly are, right? King Claudius is walking around as king, calling Hamlet, you know, you can be my son and we love you, and having to wear this mask that is going to hide the reality and the fact that he actually killed his brother to become king. Hamlet is putting on this feigned madness as one of his masks to hide what he is truly feeling. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern can't do that. Hamlet can read on their faces immediately that, you know, you guys can't hide it. You're not deceivers. You're not, in a sense, actors, right? When you put on a mask to hide your true feelings, as the king Claudius is doing, as Hamlet's doing, what you're doing is, in essence, you are acting. You are playing a part that is not truly who you are. And some people can do it and others can't. And Hamlet can see right through Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. So he said, I know the king and queen have sent for you, and they're still trying to play, but what end, my lord? Well, that you must teach me. Okay, but be direct with me, whether you were sent for or not. Why? I know they sent for you. You tell me why they sent for you. All right? Were they not sent for me? Did they not send for you? Yes or no? What say you? Aside, Rosencrantz turns to go to what do you think? You know, what do we say? And Hamlet says to them, well, he says to himself in aside, nay, then I have an eye on you. If you love me, he says, this breaks it away from the aside. If you love me, hold not off. Tell me, if you care about me, if you are my friends, enough. And then Guildenstern says, my lord, we were sent for. I will tell you why. So shall my anticipation prevent your discovery, and your secrecy to the king and queen molt no feather. I'm not going to force you to tell me why. I'm not going to have you rat out my mother and the king. I'm going to tell you why. I know why they sent for you. I'm not going to put you through this, all right? He's almost protecting them. I have of late, but whereof I know not, lost all my mirth. Okay? Foregone all custom of exercise, and indeed to go heavily with my disposition, that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me sterile, promontory, this most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave overhanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire, why it appears no other thing to me than a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. It's basically saying, I've lost all my mirth. Everything is dismal to me. Everything is just foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. Okay? I know why my mother and her husband, my uncle, sent for you. It's because they've noticed that I've been behaving in a certain way. It's because I've lost all my mirth. So let me tell you why. Because everything around me is foul. And we have this famous line here. It can't be highlighted as well as I like. What a piece of work is a man. How noble in reason. How infinite in faculty. In form and moving, how express and admirable. In action, how like an angel. In apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, and yet, right? So what is he doing here? What a piece of work is man. Look at all these things that a man can do. Action, how like an angel and apprehensive, how like a god, the beauty of this world, the paragon of animals, and yet, always when you see an and yet, to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights not me, nor woman neither. Though by your smiling, you seem to say so. Man, everything about this world and nature is foul. Man does not delight me, despite all these delightful aspects of man. Not for me. Not for me. And I know it shows. And I know that's why my mother and my uncle sent for you. My lord, there was no such stuff in my thoughts. Why did you laugh then when I said man delights not me? Telling us that there was a laughter when he said that. Right? That would be for stage directions, and we don't pick up onto it until after we read this. I think, my lord, if you delight not in man, what Lenten entertainment the players shall receive from you, we counted them on the way, and hither are they coming to offer you service. So this now, what we get here is we see how Hamlet can see through Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern being examples of people who cannot mask their thoughts. They have a certain superficiality to them. Hamlet has an opportunity to fully express his despair, and understandably now, especially after his meeting with the ghost, his despair in what man is, recognizing the paradox. What a piece of work is man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty. And man is capable of all these things, but man delights not me. Not in this state, because while man is capable of all these amazing things, man is also capable of pouring poison in another man's ear. Right? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern then now introduce the players. Right? The players are the actors. And they're telling Hamlet that the actors, who Hamlet is familiar with because he's seen them before and seems to have quite a like of the actors, are on their way. They're coming. Even those you were wont to take delight in, the tragedians of the city, how chances it they travel? The residence, both in reputation and profit, was better both ways. I think that their inhibition comes by the means of less innovation. Do they hold the same estimation they did when I was in the city? Are they so followed? He's asking, is this the same ones? Are they still as good as they were? And so on. Do they grow rusty? He wants to know, because they're going to serve. He's formulating an idea here as he's learning about the players. There's obviously an affinity with actors and putting on, taking on a role of a madman. If he's feigning madman, he's acting. This goes on, talking about these actors and their imminent arrival. Flourish of trumpets within. There are the players. They are arriving. Gentlemen, you are welcome to Elsinore. Your hands come then. Goes on here, welcoming then. You are welcome, but my uncle, father, and aunt, mother are deceived. In what, my dear Lord? I am right there talking about, this comes back to, sorry, I'm jumping a little bit here, but I realize this is, I really want to get to the next part of this scene, and you can read this over yourselves. But what is essential here, in a large extent, when we're talking about this idea of feigned madness, you are welcome, but my uncle, father, and aunt, mother are deceived. Right? Uncle, father, aunt, mother, king and queen. They are deceived. In what, my dear Lord? And now he's shifting back to the discussion about his behavior and how his mother and his uncle are thinking he's mad. They are deceived. And he's, in what way? I am but mad northwest. When the wind is southerly, I know a hawk from a handsaw. Okay. Just want to make sure that was the whole thing. So this is very important when we come into this discussion as to, is Hamlet mad or is he feigning madness? Here he seems to be clearly indicating, I am but mad north-northwest, just in that direction. When the wind is southerly, I know a hawk from a hedgehog. I'm mad some of the time, and the rest of the time I'm quite coherent. How accurate is that? Is he saying that sometimes I genuinely am out of my mind, when the other times I'm fine? Or is he suggesting here that some of the time I'm pretending to be mad, and the rest of the time I'm not? Not easily determined at this stage. It seems to be suggesting that sometimes I am crazy, sometimes I lose it. But then, like now, conceivably, fairly obviously, I know the difference between a hawk and a handsaw. But this is in the context of the actors arriving, where people are pretending to be things that they are not. Okay. Polonius comes back. And will be with you, gentlemen. Hark, you, Guildenstern, you too, at each ear hear the great baby you see there is not yet out of his swaddling clouts. Now, when Polonius arrives, Hamlet starts ridiculing him again and seemingly drifting off into this madness. I will prophesy. He comes to tell me of the players. Mark it, you say right, sir. Monday morning, 'twas so indeed, my lord. I have news to tell you. The interaction between Hamlet and Polonius can be quite amusing, becomes quite deadly sooner than later. Okay, Polonius is there to tell him the actors are come hither, my lord. The actors are here. They came, each actor on ass Hamlet again, playing with him. Let's get to the actors arrive. Again, this whole bit that I'm skipping over is Hamlet going at Polonius again, punning on him, and in this somewhat feigned madness, which seems to be very much put on specifically for Polonius. Certainly, as opposed to the way he is with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. The 4 or 5 players arrive. Right away, Hamlet says, I want to hear a speech. And I'm not going to go through this in too much detail. The players serve a very central role in helping Hamlet make a decision. It's brilliant interplay and brilliant dialogue here, where he has one of the players recite the tale of Dido that Hamlet had heard earlier, and Hamlet tries to remember the lines, and he's trying to play the part of the actor, and then the actors take over. Polonius, as always, playing this pompous, quite frankly, fool. Oh, Lord Hamlet, you did that quite well, because this is what Hamlet was trying to do it. And then the first player comes and gives this speech where he's reciting the lines from a play that Hamlet asked him to play. Ironically, can't help it. Again, Polonius, I think if you are gathering, is one of my favorite characters. The actor is going on reciting this story of, it's a story about the fall of Troy. It is relevant. There is murder and revenge. It's a revenge story. Don't want to get into it too much. It can get very involved, but it is something that will lend into the second part of this that is very much related to a story that is very close to the story that of Hamlet's father and his uncle. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. Just wanted to point out here, though, that while he is reciting this passage from the play, Polonius can't help himself. He jumps in and says, this is too long. And the irony there, of course, is Polonius is the one who goes on and on way too long. Um, this is a story that deals with, as I said, the fall of Troy and Pyrrhus and Hecuba. But to get where we want to go, he goes on. This is, again, the first actor. The player is the actor. It's a very emotional speech, monologue from the play that he is reciting about the fall of Troy. And it's interesting here to note that while this actor, at Hamlet's request, is reciting from this story, that it's a tragic story that involves the fall of Troy and the death of kings and queens, that what we're seeing here towards the end, when it gets the most emotional, Polonius reacts to the actor. Here, Polonius is going, this is too long, this is too long. And Hamlet, shuts him down there. The actor goes on reciting it, and it's very emotional. The actor is obviously emotional because the actor's playing a part. In order to be convincing, to be a good actor, you have to be convincing, even though it really has nothing specifically to do with that person who is the actor. When the actor is in a role, he has to be that person, right? This is the fundamentals of acting. But he's so good, you see how Polonius's reaction is, look, whether he has not turned his color and has tears in his eye, pray you no more. Now, what's interesting about this is the actor here, right, the player, the actor is acting. The man who is the actor is not the one who's upset. It's the character that he is playing that is getting upset. Polonius can't make that distinction. Bear with me. It's a bit subtle here what I'm trying to get at. Polonius is seeing this man speaking these words related to the fall of Troy and the death of the king and queen, and he's crying as he is talking, as he's explaining and describing. That is directly coming from the monologue from an older play. Polonius says, pray you no more. Now, again, there's different ways to interpret it. The way I've always seen that is Polonius is saying, oh my God, you poor man, no, stop, don't do this anymore. This must be terrible for you. But of course, it's an act, right? So it's not really terrible for that man, but the act is so convincing that Polonius cannot distinguish between the actor and the character. Okay? It's a commentary on acting. Tis well, I have thee speak out the rest soon. Okay, let's stop it now. Go get them ready. They're going to put on, what's determined is they're going to be putting on a show that night. Okay? And follow him, friends. We'll hear a play tomorrow, or not that night, the next night. Okay? Exit Polonius with all the players, but the first one being the one who gave that speech. Hamlet pulls him aside. This is vitally important. Hamlet pulls the main actor aside. Dost thou hear me, old friend? Can you play the murder of Gonzago? In another play. First place, aye, my lord. Will, at tomorrow night, you could, for need, study a speech of some 12 or 16 lines, which I would set down and insert in it. Could you not? Aye, my lord. Very well, follow that, lord, and look, you mock him not. Don't mock Polonius. This is again confirming, right? So again, what happens here? Hamlet pulls the first actor aside and says, listen, can you guys do Murder of Gonzago tomorrow night? Sure, the actor says. Sure we can. Okay, if I were to give you a speech of 12 to 16 lines, could you insert that into the play at a certain point? Now, of course, the actor is not going to worry about if that's affecting the integrity of the play, because this is Hamlet. He's a powerful guy here in Denmark. And he also knows him as a friend. So it's not that ludicrous an idea. And the actor says, sure, you give me your 16 lines and I'll read them. It's part of the play tomorrow night. Great. I'll get that to you very well. So follow that guy, Polonius. He'll take you where you know. And don't make fun of him, right? Because, again, Polonius lends himself to that kind of ridicule. All right. Okay. I know that's long and involved everything we just covered there. It's a long scene. Okay. Remember, this act only has 2 scenes. The first player leaves. My good friends, I'll leave you till night. You are welcome in Elsinore. Good, my lord. So God be with thee. Hamlet seems completely sane here, right? Notice the difference, the way he is with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and the way he is with Polonius. He seems to be able to turn it on and off. He seems to be able to be an actor when he needs to and turn it off and be himself when he needs to. That's why, again, the way Polonius can't tell the difference with the actor mirrors the way that Polonius can't tell the difference with Hamlet. Okay, so this is really playing on the idea of the act that we put on. We hide ourselves from others, and some people can see through it and others can't. All right, we come to this final soliloquy here at the end of the scene. Everyone's left, only Hamlet is left on stage. Now I am alone. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave I am. Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, could force his soul so to his own conceit, that from her working all his visage waned? Tears in his eyes, distraction in his aspect, a broken voice, and his whole function suiting with forms to his conceit, and all for nothing, for Hecuba, one of the characters that he's referring to. What's he saying here? He's saying this guy, this actor, could be so passionate, tears in his eyes, so moving, so convincing, for nothing that actually relates to him, for something that relates to Hecuba and the fall of Troy. Nothing that is real to him, and yet he can be so emotional and so involved and so taken up with it. What's Hecuba to him, or he to Hecuba? That he should weep for her. What would he do had he the motive and the cue for passion that I have? If he is, what he's doing, he's comparing how this actor can be so emotional and so involved with something that has nothing to do with him. Imagine what it'd be like if he had something to do with me. I'm right here. What if he had to play me? Imagine if he had to play me. He would drown the stage with tears and cleave the general ear with horrid speech, make mad the guilty and appall the free, confound the ignorant and amaze indeed the very faculties of eyes and ears. Yet I, Hamlet, yet I, a dull and muddy, meddled rascal, peak like a John of Dreams, unpregnant of my cause, and can say nothing. No, not for a king upon whose property and most dear life a damned defeat was made. Am I a coward? He's talking about himself. Here's an actor can get up there and be so convincing and involved in Hecuba And I can't even express my particular emotions and fears right now. And I can't take action. Am I a coward? I can say nothing. Who calls me villain, breaks my painted cross, plucks off my beard, and blows it in my face, tweaks me by the nose, gives me the lie in the throat, as deep as to the lungs? Who does me this? Ha! Swabs, I should take it, for it cannot be, but I am pigeon-livered, and lack gall to make oppression bitter. Or ere this, I should have fatted all the region kites with this slave's awful, bloody body, villain, remorseless, treacherous, lecherous, kindless villain, oh vengeance! Why, what an ass am I? This is most brave, that I, the son of a dear father murdered, prompted to my revenge by heaven and hell, must, like a whore, unpack my heart with words and fall a cursing like a very drab a scullion. He's insulting himself. He is beating up on himself. Why can't I be more decisive? Why can't I act on my revenge for my father? What am I to do? He is thinking, what do I, and I can't be as forceful and as prone to action. And he's frustrated, and he is beating up on himself here, viciously. And he comes up with something. Remember, because he's always thinking and he can't act, and he hates himself for it. But he has doubts, and he's thinking, and he has to figure things out. And clearly what happens here is like one of the things he believes that's preventing him from taking action and fulfilling the desires of his dead father for revenge is, I need more proof. Fie upon it, fall about my brain. I have heard that guilty creatures sitting at a play have, by the very cunning of the scene, been struck so to the soul that presently they have proclaimed their malefactions. For murder, though it have no tongue, will speak with most miraculous organ. I have an idea. I'll have these players play something like the murder of my father before mine uncle. I'll observe his looks. I'll tempt him to the quick. If he but blench, I know my course. The spirit that I have seen may be the devil, and the devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape, yea, and perhaps out of my weakness and my melancholy, as he is very potent with such spirits, abuses me to damn me. I'll have my grounds more relative than this. The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. Okay. Sorry, it's so rich. What is, I mean, again, we see here as I said, he's beating up on himself. Am I a coward? Why can't I take action? What he's unveiling to himself is, again, he needs to know for certain. And the more he thinks, the more it is not black and white, the grayer it gets. And he's clearly questioning now what he saw when he thought he saw the ghost. The spirit that I have seen, that's his father, or the ghost of his father. The spirit that I have seen may be the devil. And the devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape. The devil may have taken the shape of and likeness of my father. Yea, and perhaps out of my weakness, we know this because he was weak in this idea of weakness at the beginning of the play, right? Still fretting and mourning over his loss of his father and his mother marrying the uncle. And perhaps out of my weakness and my melancholy, as he is very potent with such spirits, he's very good at taking advantage of people who are weak and melancholy, as he's very potent with such spirits, abuses me to damn me. Hamlet is sitting here, again, because he didn't seem to have any doubts before, after the moment with his father. Seemed pretty clear cut. My father came back as a ghost and just told me that my uncle killed him to take over the kingdom. And my father is looking at me saying, you must avenge my murder. And Hamlet's initial reaction is, yes, yes. Remember, the ghost says, remember. And Hamlet's going, how can I forget? I'm going to throw everything else out of my head, and this will be my only purpose. Well, a little time has passed. He hasn't taken any action. He beats up on himself up here. Why can't I have action? Why can't I be passionate and follow through on these things the way that, which is ignited in him by seeing the actor who can seemingly do so when it's not even real. And he realizes that he's still doubting. He's still concerned that maybe that wasn't his father. Maybe that spirit was not his father. Maybe it was the devil taking advantage of me, pretending to be my friend in order to get me to do something where I'll be damned for eternity. I need more proof. So I'm going to set up tomorrow night, with these actors, where I'm going to play a scene, those 16 lines he's going to write. I'm going to have the actors play out a scene that will recreate the specifics of my father's murder as the spirit that I saw described it. And if my uncle is guilty and did these things, because I'll be watching him, he'll reveal it. Because he'll say, no one else knows that. Remember how Hamlet's father, or the ghost of Hamlet's father, said he was killed, sleeping all alone in the woods, and his uncle came and poured poison in his ear. So if you recreate someone pouring poison in the ear, when no one knows that that's how Hamlet's father died, except for Claudius, Claudius will react, and Hamlet will then have more certainty, because he's doubting it now, because he thinks too much. The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. All right. And that's the end of Act 2. It's important, though, because it's really setting things up. I will be posting a video on Act 3 soon, all right, because we didn't have class this week. I will be posting a video on Act 3, so when we get back next week, you will have hopefully read all the way through Act 4. Ideally, you would have finished the play. We have 2 more classes, right, with 2 more weeks of class. So you do need to finish it. I really cannot emphasize enough the importance of attending the virtual classes. They're not recording. I'm unable to convert them, and you're missing all the material that goes on there. I come back, I cover the same material, but I don't cover it in exactly the same way. So it really is your advantage to be at those virtual classes, especially since we only have 2 more left. And in those 2, we're going to be covering Acts 4 and Act 5. And a reminder, your final exam is on Hamlet. So I'll leave it at that. If you have questions or concerns, get in touch with me, please. Look for the next video, which will be covering Act 3. And I I will see you next week. All right, since we didn't have class this week, everyone, please stay safe. Think about the things that were touched on here. I drop a lot of hints which are meant to alert you to certain things to be looking for when you continue reading the future acts. All right, stay safe. We will see you next week, and enjoy Hamlet.